charge our guests, so that's how we
Okay,
make
so
our.
yeah, so
Yeah.
is that why they asked me for my credit card number
Yeah,
on the way in?
yeah, that's why Steven collected it before you started the podcast.
Yeah, that's why they give you the name Smokey.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't see that coming.
He actually has the name Smokey. I think everyone thinks that he like gets high all the time, but he has the name Smokey because he looks like one of those little smoky sausages. You ever see those? They're called Little Smokies, Lil Smokies.
Are those like those little Jimmy Deans?
Yeah, like little pigs in a blanket.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's how he got the name.
Wow,
That's why I was asking, how do we slice this guy up?
that's awesome. I think. Yeah, well, we can save it a little bit. I got some ideas for you guys.
There you go.
You guys
As we dive in.
Yeah, we're live. By the
You
way.
were mentioning using some isometric training just a little bit ago, and we just had. Do you know Josh Bryant?
No, I don't.
Josh Bryant's a strength coach, powerlifting coach. He's coached probably about, I want to say, maybe 10 guys or so to 600-pound benches. And he uses a lot of isometric training. We don't hear people talk about isometrics that much. How are you using isometrics with bodybuilding?
We're using it with time under tension. So with my personal style of training, which I created FST-7 trainings to be able to grow into a pump. What I did was I tried to increase intensity and find different ways of increasing intensity. So you have simple ways, which are, when I consider simple, are the ones that are the most obvious, like partials and doing negatives and doing forced reps or doing supersets. Then to create more time under tension, what I created was what I called isometric static holds, or just statics for short. And what will happen is we're doing a positive rep, whether it's on a hammer press or whether it's a dumbbell press, and then holding one side while doing repetitive, doing reps on the other side. And so by doing that, you're getting time under tension from not only the side that you're using, we're repping out, but you're also being able to get time under tension on the opposite side, on the static. So that's been implemented more and more for me and my athletes the last couple years. And so I utilize that. I utilize, again, the amplifiers of the intensity amplifiers, which I call those other things that I mentioned earlier, like the partials and doing forced reps and negatives. So that, along with being able to work around the muscle, meaning also throwing in things like ladders and doing different types of range of motion when you're doing an actual exercise to be able to get a complete look, because we're all going for a look. In bodybuilding, it's all about the aesthetic.
And in helping all these people, get super jacked and become, Phil Heath, hopefully he's on his way to his 8th victory in a row. And you've worked with so many other top pros in helping all these people out. Do you kind of have a little bit of a Bruce Lee approach where you're not afraid to like use and try everything? Over the years, you kind of have used high rep, low rep, high fat, high carb, like you kind of have mixed it up and run the gamut of things that you've tried?
Absolutely. I think that has been probably one of my biggest strengths is I'm not closed-minded. I use different things, different techniques, different dieting techniques, different training techniques. Just when it comes to training in general, your body adapts. So what you need to do is you need that diversification so that your body creates a new stimulus. I mean, you're using stimulus to be able to grow. And you have to do that. And it can't be just with diet. It can't just be with training. It can't just be with supplements. It needs to be, you have to run the whole gamut with that, especially when you are training for year after year after year and your body adapts. So it's really important that you create variety. And I do it along lines of all of the things we just mentioned.
A lot of people will say, and I've heard it many times on this podcast, especially when it comes to diet, again, it's important for us to just throw it out there that most of the time when we're talking about diet, at least on this podcast, we're usually just in reference to people trying to look better, aesthetics, people just trying to, lose some body fat. And there's the other side of it, which is gaining muscle, which is the side that people kind of tend to lose sight of. But we have a lot of people that make the statement. They'll say, everybody's different, and then they just kind of like they don't follow up the statement with anything. Like they just kind of say everybody's different, and it's almost like a lazy way out of like trying some sort of hard diet. Almost, I feel. And somebody might say, I can't take in carbs, and it's like, do you really know that? Do you know that you can't take in carbs, or have you not followed the rules? Like there's rules to follow. When you take in carbs, then something else has to give, right? You're probably going to have to drop your fat down, right? And when you go on a high fat diet, you'll probably have to drop your carbs down, right?
Right.
And so I think a lot of times we get people on here and they'll say everybody's different, and they just kind of leave it at that. What have you seen? Is everybody quite different?
Yes, everybody is quite different, but you have to create. What I create a blueprint, and that's why I don't work with a lot of people, because the deeper you dive into somebody's program, the more you have to break apart what aspects you want to go deep into, and whether it's the training, whether it's the diet, and now we're kind of focusing on diet right now. We're talking about diet. If somebody is used to giving a cookie cutter diet to somebody and says, "Hey, listen, I just do keto. Just keto. And here's my blanket keto diet that I give to everybody that I charge X number of dollars online to with all these online gurus now. And I'm going to turn around and I'm just going to give this to you." Well, how do you know that guy doesn't get ripped off of 300 or 400 grams of carbs? And that's been my argument all along for years, because there's so many people out there that have these blanket cookie cutter bullshit, like here you go, one size fits all programs, and you're not really maximizing what's best for them. It's just what's best for you, because you're trying to create an easy way out instead of really diving into what's best for their genetics, what's best for their training, what's changed from their training previously to where they're at now, how's their age, injuries, all of the things that are affected. I mean, when you have diets, and if somebody is getting ripped off of 400 grams of carbs and getting striated glutes, why the hell am I going to put them on a keto diet?
Right.
And
that makes sense.
And I mean, and again, we're trying to create in that aesthetic physique, industry that I'm in, we are trying to create a look, a three-dimensional look. Whether it's a girl, whether it's a guy, we're trying to get a little bit capped shoulders. We're trying to create a bigger chest, rounder chest, upper pecs. We're trying to get the arms looking a little bit fuller to fill in the sleeves, whether they're getting ready for a competition or whatnot. So all of those things are affected by the diet. So if I can turn around and carb cycle them, or if I can put them on higher carbs, then why throw them on something that's just is going to be counterproductive? So because I want to be lazy and I just want to email over some cookie cutter diet.
A lot of times on my Instagram, I'll just make a post and I'll say like, "Hey, here's a bunch of foods that you should be eating," and I usually just say, like, if you're trying to lose weight and you've been stuck in the past, you haven't been able to figure it out, just try it. And then people still get all up in arms over that. It's just free information. I'm just listing out some foods, and basically, what I've learned over the years is we need to figure out a way to remove junk from our food. You can get ripped. I mean, we've seen people get ripped by just finding their caloric needs and adjusting the right way. But it always really comes down to you being at least an 8 or a 9 on your diet. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean,
in terms of getting really
I'm
lean.
assuming you're like talking about like if it fits your macros type.
Yeah. Right.
So I mean, here's the deal. This is what I believe in, if it fits your macros. If you have the capability, whether it's genetic or whether you're burning off the calories, to be able to get lean and eat within a calorie spec, and eat donuts or eat cookies or muffins, and you can do that and stay within the if it fits your macros type of scenario, then God bless you. Most can't, because the biochemistry of your body and the physiology of your body is, in a way, dependent on the types of foods that you're taking in, not just the overall macros.
And why do you believe that?
Because I'm a nutrition, I've been studying nutrition for a long time, but my degree is in biology with emphasis in neurophysiology and biochemistry, right? So that was my emphasis. So even though my degree from UC Santa Barbara was from biology, I was a bodybuilder when I was like 15 years old. I started competing as a teenager. I was, reading every clinical study I possibly could on supplements, on diet, on training. I studied Arthur Jones. I studied tons of different training principles and different diet principles. And one thing that I realized when I started training people at a very young age, and as I was a teen, I started training people, was that you could turn around and you could get there's more than one way to skin a cat. And one thing that I realized
Why
was,
is that a saying?
I don't know, because
it's kind of like twisted.
it is a twist I'm saying. I don't know where it came up, but it actually
Like I don't really like cats, but it's still it still fucks up.
but if you had to, I guess there's many ways to do it. But
Right.
but there, at the bottom line is this: when you are using carbohydrates, and again, why I'm so into this is because when you're using simple sugars and you're sitting on if it fits your macro program, what it tends to happen is just the biochemical response is the fact that your body's is going to release insulin. And the simple version of it is that when your body releases insulin, it shuts off fat burning. So therefore, even though it fits your macros, your endocrine system is releasing a hormone that is, anabolic, but also it's going to stop fat burning.
So we need to kind of pick and choose when we're going to release that hormone, almost, right?
Exactly. And if your body can actually handle the hormone, and then when we start getting into insulin sensitivity,
Right.
which a lot of people don't understand. So when you are heavier and you're a little bit overweight, or if you're genetically inclined to have type 2 diabetes, or if you're just, again, your body fat's a little too high, what ends up happening is you go through metabolic syndrome where your body cannot process the carbohydrates efficiently. Or let's say you just don't have the ability to get into the gym as much as you want to. So therefore, there's other diets that are a little bit easier to be able to handle. And
What was the saying that you guys have, you and your buddies? What was that?
Oh, which one?
About getting in shape?
Oh,
You just said it before the podcast came
I
on.
can't even remember. We were talking a
Well,
lot.
you basically said,
If you're in shape, you're not making enough money.
yeah,
Yeah. When you start working really hard and you're working with a lot of clients and you're traveling all around the world like
Right.
we do, what ends up happening is we all look at each other. We had a show here last night, NPC IFBB Pro League show, and there was like 5 or 6 of the top trainers there, and we're all looking at each other, and we all look at each other and go, okay, who's making the most money? Because whoever's out of shape is making the most money because we can't take care of ourselves, And they're like, oh, Hany must not be doing well because he's lost 20 pounds,
Yeah.
But it's convenient. Certain diets are more convenient as well, and they're more easily manageable, whether you're eating out, traveling, or whether you're dealing with the fact that you're cravings.
Right.
So therefore, I'm a big believer in using keto at specific times and with specific people. But the whole thing is that when you are sitting under if it's your macro type diet and you're releasing insulin, your body is now going to crave more carbohydrates. So therefore, it's harder to fit your macros because now it's like smoking weed and not getting the munchies. People go out there and smoke weed and they go, "Oh my God, I can't stick to my diet."
Right.
And it's very similar to that. So
The same thing happens with alcohol. I think there is room for alcohol in your average person who just wants to get in a little bit better shape. I think they can have some alcohol. I mean, telling them they can have some always leads them to having way too much. But ultimately what happens is people do drink too much and then they end up eating brownies and ice cream and pizza and whatever else, right?
right, absolutely.
End up going way off the diet.
and that's the thing. And then it's like it starts a cascade effect. So,
Right.
everybody who's ever done a keto diet knows that, hey, the minute you start hitting those carbs, it's really hard to back off. And it's really,
Right.
so you have to have a game plan. So I game plan my athletes, so whether it's a person that I'm working with that's an executive that is just trying to lose weight because they're getting ready for a big family vacation that I've worked with, or whether it's an athlete that's getting back in shape, I always understand ahead of time. It's like a chess match. You have to think many steps ahead. So when you know that this person's going to hit carbs, you're going to know that they're going to start having these cravings. So
Right.
what are you going to do to help those cravings? Because are you going to leave them on their own and be like, hey, hopefully it works out for you, buddy? And you're not going to stop eating? I mean,
Figure out a way to manage it.
yeah. So I have different ways of managing it. I have methods that I use to help manage the eat ups and how to handle the eat ups and how to deal with the aftermath of the eat ups and what I tend to call the hangover of the of the carb the carb rush.
Sometimes you can even just train, like if you let's hypothetically say that you ate whatever you wanted on a Friday night and now it's Saturday morning. If you train and training fasted, but not for any other reason than just because you're trying to reset yourself. It's not for the benefits of fasting. You fast that day, you get your training out of the way on Saturday, and you kind of reboot it almost.
Yes.
Would that be something that you might recommend? Something along those lines?
Absolutely. So the way I do it specifically, I'll actually go over it. So the way I do it is I look at it a couple different ways. Number one, if it's somebody who's just trying to lose weight, what we do is I put them on a fasted cardio or a fasted training program the day after their eat up. I also will give them if they haven't been on for very long or not at all, a fat burner. I'll put them on a fat burner. I design all my own products. So what I do is I give them something with a little bit of caffeine, a little bit of Advantra Z, which I'm a huge believer on.
How long have you been doing that for? How long have you had this
I've been designing, well, I started Evogen about, I think I incorporated a little over 10 and a half years ago.
Oh, wow.
And it was when I incorporated it. And believe it or not, I started with one product, a non-stim $60 non-stim fat burner, when the number one product on the market was a super stim $25 fat burner. And I
Wow.
started the company that way. But I started designing supplements about 20 years ago.
Holy shit.
And so I was doing it for my personal clients, and then I would make certain products at certain times because I didn't feel like the marketplace had things that I needed for my type of athletes.
Right.
So whether it was a pre-workout, whether it was an intra-workout, whether it was an NFL player, or whether it was an Olympic athlete, and then I would turn around and try to make the cleanest product for what they needed. But I would prescribe a program for somebody coming off of an eat up on a keto program. And I would say, listen, you're going to have these cravings. This is what's going to happen. So first thing I would do is dealing with the emotional. I mean, it's again,
Yeah.
This is an emotional
Yeah.
thing because you're going to have cravings. Your brain, really craves two major things. And it is sugar and caffeine.
I thought you were going to say pussy. I thought for sure.
I thought he was
I
going
thought
there.
for sure.
That's not your.
There's
That's the
four
other
guys
head.
in this
That's the
room,
other
yeah.
head. That's the other head. So that's the other head. But and I'm talking about males and females here. Okay, I thought this was a family-friendly show. I didn't know what this was all about.
Didn't know it was gonna
But
downhill. Whoa.
Yeah, it goes quick. It goes quick. But honestly, what happens is your brain craves sugar.
Right.
And it really craves caffeine. So what we're trying to do is we're replacing the sugar craving with the caffeine craving. And that's what we're doing. We're adding that in to help what I call bridging. Okay. And you hear me use that term a lot, when it comes to hormones, when it comes to supplements, when it comes to diet. So what I'm doing is I'm helping get caffeine into the blood-brain barrier because I'm trying to stop the craving of the sugar going into the blood-brain barrier. So you're not turning around and triggering the pancakes and you're ending up at IHOPs the next morning and you're like, okay, you know what? I can handle another full day of eating.
That's
Because-
interesting. I've never heard anybody talk about that. And even if you were to break it down a lot further, like let's just say the place that the caffeine hits in your brain is slightly different than the sugar, who really cares? At least you threw yourself a bone.
Exactly.
Right? At least you gave
Exactly.
yourself something, right?
Right. And that's the thing. So it's my version of methadone.
Right.
So it's basically saying, okay, let's get you off the heroin and let's put you on methadone for the day. And so, and then what you do is the next stage is what you mentioned, is the training. So now what's going to happen is your body is going to go through a whole different biochemical process by burning off the excess glycogen so that you're not only less likely to turn those carbohydrates into fat, but now all of a sudden you're getting endorphins that are going to help also mitigate, be able to give you the endorphins that are needed to help so that you're not getting the endorphins from the pancakes, the Taco Bell, the salt, the sugar, all of the shit that you eat that makes you feel good, that pump up your serotonin levels. So now you're getting that from the training. So what we're doing is I use a multi-stage approach. It's a very scientific way, and when it comes to when you look at it in terms of the basis of hey, I'm trying to create a bridge, and every piece of the bridge to get us to the other side, which is basically then back into ketosis and then back into what we talked about earlier, into burning diesel.
Right.
Because your body, I consider the gasoline being the carbohydrates and the sugars, and then the diesel being the ketones.
Have you ever experimented with something like 5-HTP to boost those serotonin levels?
Yep. I actually use 5-HTP and sometimes in my fat burner too.
That's awesome.
So that's why I do it. And they go, well, why would you 5-HTP? Because it's 5-HTPs for sleeping. Not necessarily. And they don't. They get the difference between tryptophan and 5-hydroxytryptophan mixed up. And being that I design my own products, I do actually use 5-HTP.
Dude, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, I really like that.
Yeah, so it's really important that you understand the chemistry of the brain and how everything works and what the actual solution is. Because for me, it's not selling a product; it's creating a tool for the actual solution of what you're trying to do. If I'm trying to bring somebody into 3 or 4 or 5% body fat, or if I'm taking somebody from 30% body fat down to 15% body fat, all of those things you need to be able to have a Batman style, ammo belt, and that you can turn around a utility belt, that you have to pull out some different
Well,
things.
isn't the truth, especially if somebody's never done it before, if you're a seasoned dieter and you've gone from 20% to like 13%, probably, I mean, it's going to be tough, right?
Mhm.
But probably not that bad. You've done it before.
Mhm.
You know what it takes, and maybe, maybe in some cases, people are naturally leaner, but they get a little fatter here and there.
Mhm.
Probably not a huge deal. But ultimately, when you are a heavier person, that's like a crazy change, right? To start to get in the single digit body fat.
It's huge.
And that has to be managed 24/7.
Yes, it does.
That's what makes bodybuilding such a cool sport in a lot of ways, is that, you can look at other sports, you can say, oh, well, nutrition's important for all this, for basketball and stuff like that. But you're not physically being judged by what you eat on a daily basis,
Right.
in a game of basketball necessarily, right? And so bodybuilding is 24/7. And you have to figure out ways of managing that all the time. When somebody's trying to lose that amount of body fat, I mean, that's got to be just such a huge change for them. How do you manage? I know you're mentioning, the caffeine and some of these things. I mean, ultimately, isn't the person eating less, or is it enough strategy involved where the calories come up, they come down, they come up, they come down? There's a little bit more method to the madness to kind of ease that pain of that much change?
Yeah, it works in two ways. When you're talking about a competitive bodybuilder, depending on what level they're at, you're trying to do one of two things. Either you're trying to go after titles, whether it's the USA winner or the nationals, or you're trying to turn professional, or you're trying to win the Olympia. That's a whole different scenario. When you're talking about trying to get into shape, I feel like it's a completely different scenario. So when you're in bodybuilding, it really comes down to
I guess that makes sense. Your ass isn't really on the line when you're just trying to get in shape.
Exactly. You're just trying to get in shape, then you turn around and go, okay, I want to be healthy. I want to live longer. I want to feel better. Now you take a little bit more care of your, trying to be able to be on this planet a little bit longer. You're trying to spend time with your family.
Yeah.
For
Sleep more, things like
sleep
that.
more,
Yeah.
sleep better.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, like when I sit down and I'm talking to a person about weight loss, I'm talking about how they can get their inflammation down from going on a certain diet and getting the sugars out and getting the inflammation down so that they can train again. Because sometimes, just simple cardio is banging up their knees because they have too much inflammation from hitting too many processed carbs and doing too many sugars, and the inflammation kicks up. Now they can't do anything, or it's exacerbating their sleep apnea, and so it's not just the weight or the aesthetic thing. So it's like it's a two-pronged approach. When you're talking about bodybuilding, what you're trying to do is you're trying to actually, and again, I always use cars as reference points because that's my hobby. I like to race cars. And but when you turn around and you can turn around and put more and more modifications onto a car to be able to make it win races. But if you're trying to get out there and want to just make sure that you have a daily driver that can get you from point A to point B, that can last you the next 200,000 miles, that's something a little bit different because
Right.
you're trying to do that for overall health. And so it's
A totally different
when
mentality.
exactly, because then when you start to get to the extremes, health is not always a concern. It's just the aesthetic or the performance aspect of it.
Right.
So it's not the healthiest thing to be 300 pounds off season.
Right.
Even though your body fat's 12%. So at the end of the day, it really comes down to what your end goal is.
Some people are, really confused by insulin. You have, and it starts these huge fights online all the time. And then some people are like, wait, I think bodybuilders sometimes use it to get bigger. Why would a bodybuilder utilize something like insulin? What's it doing for them?
Oh, it's a very anabolic hormone, but it's one of those things that I'm not a huge believer in that. And believe it or not, everybody probably thinks I am. And I know because they see bodybuilders that I work with that have a very 3D look, and they think, oh, insulin. And insulin has got so many negative drawbacks to it. But when you're running insulin, people think, hey, listen, it's such an anabolic compound that you must be doing it to be able to bodybuild. And they don't realize so many bodybuilders don't use it. It's just that it's been in these kind of like this taboo mythic type of like, hey,
Right.
you know, this is what it is, and it's so anabolic and it's so needed, and it's not. It's what's needed is you need to get your body to be able to utilize its own insulin at such a high efficiency. Therefore, your body will take what it needs, and then it'll downregulate the rest. But when you're sitting there trying to take extra insulin, your body will do the side effects that go along with it, you know, with possible death,
Yeah.
are so
Insane.
high risk. And that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of these guys are passing away, you know, because if you take an extra cc of testosterone, chances are nothing's going to happen. You're going to,
Just
you
get a
know,
little bigger.
you get a little bit bigger, or you might get some gyno, or you know, your blood pressure will go up.
Get a
and,
boner.
you know, something along those lines. You know, you'll get a little bit of that. But if you take a little extra insulin and you don't do some carbs in time, you're dead. You're dead. And a lot of people, it's become such a mythical thing that people think that, oh my God, this is what the secret is. And they don't understand that all of the drawbacks that go along with it, besides the fact that you could kill yourself in minutes, that you end up having all of the different side effects. You get, you know, distension, you get this, you get that, you get, the list goes on and on. And then also, after the first time you use it, then it downregulates because now all your insulin receptors downregulate. So then you have to take more, then the risks become exponentially worse. So the key is to try to get the effects of it through your own efficiency of your own insulin. And again, creating more insulin sensitivity.
Would you say some of the key, some of the same keys that you mentioned for insulin would be the same for any performance-enhancing drug? Really trying to just elicit your body's own. The more that you can tap into what your body can naturally do, probably the better off you're going to be.
Absolutely. I think that what happens is you want to be able to utilize as much of what your natural hormones as possible, and then when you know that it comes to a complete halt. Let's say your testosterone production just isn't working. Let's say you're 45 years old and you're no longer being able to produce more than a couple hundred milligrams of natural tests in terms of just, let's say, you know, your natural is supposed to be on a blood test above 400. You know, 400 to 800 is that, you know, optimum range, and your body's at 200 nanograms per deciliter. What happens is now you have to make a decision. Okay, you want to try to maximize your testosterone. What I do is I say, hey, client A, what are you doing? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you able to, you know, do you have issues with your sleep? Whether it's not enough, whether it's sleep apnea, because all of these things can actually contribute to having low test. And then you turn around and go, hey, how's your diet? You know, oh, my diet's great. I eat these bars that are really good for you that have tons of soy protein in them, and I don't know why I've got bitch tits. You know, and it's like, there you go, Stephen. And so, you know, you go through the process of elimination. You go through a process of seeing what a person's program looks like, how their rest patterns are, how their training programs are, all of those things. Are you working out? Because those things can increase test. But if your testosterone still doesn't go up, or it's so low, then you have to go into hormone replacement therapy. Then you also have to say, okay, great, this didn't work. I tried this, and this. Now we have to turn around and we have to replace. And that's when, obviously, you go in, get a prescription, you know, get some blood work done. The doctor prescribes you a CC test a week, and you go from there. You know, or a cream or gel or whatever they want to prescribe for you. But the key is to try to maximize what you have, whether it's, you know, your own natural testosterone, whether it's your own natural insulin, whatever it is, you're trying to maximize that first. That's always trying to be, you know, the primary goal.
Shifting gears a little bit, in America, you know, obesity is one of the things that hits us the hardest. There's just so much food out there that's convenient, that tastes amazing. What do you think? What do you think some weapons that we can grab a hold of to fight against obesity? What are some things that people can do to try to get maybe steer the ship back the other direction if it's even possible?
You know, I think convenience is one. I mean, the thing is, everything is about making sure that whatever you decide to do, that it's convenient for you to do. In regards to diet, it would be meal prep, right? Get with a meal prep. There's so many meal prep companies now. There's ones that will deliver a couple times a week. There's ones that you can go pick up daily. They have lockers where you can go to supplement stores and pick them up. meal prep is really important because it helps provide convenience. Because a lot of people switch to the alternative of not having clean food because fast food is so abundant.
Right.
So it's a lot easier to run through a Burger King or a McDonald's drive-through than it is to have grilled chicken breast, salad, and or a lean steak and some vegetables. And so what ends up happening is when you have the ability to invest in yourself a little bit, and it might cost a little bit more money because good food costs a lot more money than processed food, especially when you realize what they do to try to make it so cheap. It really makes a huge difference because now you have the ability to have something that's more convenient, and you can either pick that up, you can have it delivered, whatnot. Now all of a sudden, you don't have to go through it, and not eat for 5 or 6 hours, and then now you have to make a bad choice because you're starving. So that's the first thing. The first thing is to make sure that you're trying to, create more organization throughout the day to be able to make better decisions.
Maybe even like don't even think about a diet necessarily.
No.
Just get better food around you.
That's it. If you
That's
start
convenient.
there, that's going to start there. It really starts there. If you get that, then you're going to turn around and be like, okay, now let's make a plan where I can make 30 minutes, 40 minutes a day to be able to do some kind of exercise, whether it's get up, do fasted cardio, get up, train, or train after work, middle of work, whatever it is. I tend to have my athletes do a lot of fasted cardio because I believe in fasted cardio. I like the blood sugar nice and low so that when you go in, your body's going to tend to burn more body fat. So right when they get up in the morning, they roll out of bed, they might either take something, whether it's even at the simplest form, maybe some black coffee or whatnot, roll up into.
Is that why we see The Rock doing that shit all the time?
Well, you know what? The Rock's been doing shit like that forever.
Yeah.
And he, that's him. But he's a different animal, man, because he's an actor, entrepreneur, businessman, everything, professional bodybuilder. I mean, the guy does it all.
Yeah.
And it's sad because I joke about it on my IG and stuff, and he
I
literally.
see you giving him shit on there sometimes.
I do, because I just go, dude, he makes me feel lazy as fuck. And I'm traveling all around the world.
He makes everybody feel lazy. Yeah.
And
He's doing a good job of that.
yeah, he's really good at that. He's such an asshole. But at the end of the day, I mean, it really, he's the kind of guy that if he has to train at 4 o'clock in the morning and get up, he'll do it. If he has to train at 4 o'clock in the morning because he hasn't slept yet, he'll do it because he uses that as therapy, right? He talks about it all the time. He talks about it on social. He talks about it out there in interviews. And it's one of those things that he has a completely different mentality because the bodybuilders that I train have a mentality of, hey, I have to win this show, and I'm going to start sticking the fact that we're getting more serious.
Wow, you're a lot shorter than him.
Well, he's standing on a box.
Oh, okay,
He's
never
standing
mind.
on a box.
Take it back.
He
is like 6'5" or something.
Yeah, he's
shit,
6'5", and I'm like 5'6", and so on a good day. But he's just, the guy is incredible because he's so motivating to everybody. I mean, I don't care if you're, you see him and Kevin Hart banter back and forth, or you see him with, just people. It's motivating to people that literally will have like 5 followers, and he'll respond to them. And he is just, when you see that, it sets as an example.
How about what he did to that for that girl that wanted to go to the prom with him?
Oh,
Did
yeah.
you see that?
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Yeah. That the school thing.
Yeah,
and
over the loudspeaker and everything. It was crazy.
And it's just and just watching that is really motivating because what it does is it gives you a sense of, hey, look, you don't get to a level where you're too good to do those type of things. And that's what really makes a huge difference.
Well, I think a lot of people look at The Rock and they're like, this guy is just, he's just this way, like he's a genetic mutant or whatever, but he's working his ass off.
No, dude, look at him. Here, genetic mutant. Look, this guy works hard, okay? And right now he's the guy is in the best shape he's ever been in, right? And look at where he was 15, 20 years ago when he was wrestling.
Yeah.
He's in better shape now than he was then.
And he looks a lot younger.
And he looks younger.
He looks a lot younger.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
But if you look at him back in the wrestling days, I mean, he was not nearly in the shape.
He was in good shape. He was a big guy, but yeah, he wasn't nearly as lean as he is today.
Yeah, and he's taken, really good care of himself. But the whole point is that it's like a fine wine. It's getting better as it ages.
Right.
And I think when it comes to all aspects of his life, but he always puts it out there that that's his anchor. That's what helps him be him.
Right.
Because if he didn't train, he wouldn't be where he's at.
He's
So
got
he puts that
desire
out there.
desire to get better all the time.
Yeah, and he puts a great team together. I mean, Dave Rienzi's training him, and Dave's a really good friend of mine. I work with Dave, and he's got, amazing manager / ex-wife, Danny Garcia. I mean, you put yourself around.
She's into bodybuilding too.
Yeah, she's a pro, and Dave is an amateur that's trying to go pro and getting ready to go pro. He had a couple injuries, cool. and Dave's amazing at what he does. He works with Hany Rambod. And he, and other athletes, and you putting yourself around successful people,
right?
And he's got this amazing team. It's not just him. It's it's all of this, and it's all that together is what makes a person as good as he is. It's not just one person. So when a lot of people out there are thinking, hey, listen, this person or that person, they don't mention all these other people. It's not true. It's a team.
I remember
he does. They do an amazing job.
I remember when the Rock
and I'm blessed enough to used to be able to work with them. I mean, him and I chip chat now and then. But Dave does all his training now, and
that's cool.
And it's great because like I keep seeing him look just better and better, and they do a wonderful job.
Yeah, is he like 50? He's like 50, right, or something like that. Or
no, don't give him that hard of a time. He's about. I'm 43. He's a couple years older than me, so I think DJ's about. Yeah, I think he's about 45. 46.
Somewhere in there.
46. Yeah.
Yeah, I know like a couple years ago when he was getting ready to do some movies where he was going to kind of break away from wrestling a little bit more. Like he did some movies while I was in wrestling, and then he tried to break away from wrestling a little bit further, and he did like Trainwreck I can't remember the movie it was. But one of his first movies that he was doing, he told the studio, he's like, I got to get in shape. And they're like, all right, well, we'll get you a coach, we'll get you a trainer. And most people that are in shape, and a lot of people that are already doing good, would be like, no, I'm all good. Like I'm fine. I know how to work out. I played football and I do this, I do that. So it was cool that he wasn't resistant to it. I remember a good friend of mine, and you probably know Mike Ryan.
Mm-hmm. I've heard of Mike.
Yeah, we've been friends with Mike Ryan forever. I remember Mike Ryan got a hold of him. Mike Ryan's like, dude, you can't eat stacks of pancakes every day mm-hmm. and be lean. Like let's try to rein this in a little bit. But it's it's admirable that there's a lot of people out there that are the best at what they do, and they still want to get better.
Yeah.
And there's like Phil Heath, the same way.
Yeah. Phil is a perfect example. I mean, Phil is a guy that's genetically, they call him the gift.
Right.
And he
just has it all. He doesn't work for it.
Yeah, he doesn't. That's what everybody thinks, right? Or they think, hey, he just gets shredded on his own. He doesn't barely have to do cardio, and it's so opposite the truth, because he's the type of person who, because he's genetically gifted with some roundness to his muscle bellies, but he's not a guy like Dexter Jackson who is just naturally lean.
Damn, Dexter Jackson's crazy.
And Dexter Jackson's 48 years old, and the guy is just amazing. I mean, he's like the Energizer Bunny. And I'm just sitting here looking at the whole thing going, okay, Phil is going to be, I think, what is he going to be, 39 this year, 39, 40? And I've been working with Phil since late 2005. We started working together. And it's been almost 13 years. I've seen him get so fat in the off season, and back in the beginning of his career.
Hopefully he's not listening to this.
No, I hope he is actually, but because he'll attest to this. He used to get really pudgy, and when he would guest pose and whatnot, and then as he's matured and everything, he's kept in better shape, and his body's gone. But he's worked for it.
Right.
He's worked for it, and I'm blessed to be a part of the team. But when people turn around and go, "Oh, he's so it's so easy to work with," or this that, no, he works hard. People go, "Oh, he's got genetics, and that's why he wins." It's not because it's genetic. It's genetics and what he calls it with hard work. Then you win, right? Because when you combine those two things together, and what's really important is that for people to understand that, I don't care how blessed you are in genetics, a guy with half your genetics that can work really hard will still beat you. Okay, Branch Warren's a perfect example. When you start looking at bodybuilders, right? The guy genetically doesn't have it. I'm sorry. He doesn't. Genetically, I mean, he has, in terms of like the small waist, the Dexter Jackson, let me just get shredded by doing 10 minutes of cardio and sitting there, literally he would joke about it. Dexter would joke and say, yeah, I didn't do any cardio for the show with Arnold after he would win the Arnold Classic. And then he'd be like, how much cardio? Arnold would say, Dexter, how many minutes of cardio did you do? And he's like, I didn't do any cardio. How long did you train for this show? It must have been hours. And the guy is like, yeah. 40 minutes. Like, and everyone's like, fuck you, man.
Right.
Like, we're sitting here killing ourselves. But then you look at somebody like Branch Warren, who's just fucking hard work, man. The guy's in there and he trains like he's out gutting a pig. He just wants to murder it, right? I mean,
He's like a lunatic.
and all kidding aside, that's what he does. You know
Yeah.
that, right? He
Yeah,
hunts
yeah.
and he like literally is like, honey, I took this long knife and I stuck him, and I'm like, oh wow. I mean, like, and that's how he trains.
He's a savage.
He's a savage. He doesn't hold back, and the guy is just a beast. And that's what he makes up for that. Like, oh, I don't have a small waist, and I don't just get shredded by playing PlayStation, or Xbox, like some of these other guys do. And that's the thing. And there's Branch, and he's been as high as second to the Olympia the year I trained Jay in 2009. He was second to Jay Cutler. And that was the, I mean, if Jay wouldn't have, came in shape, Branch Warren would have been Mr. Olympia. Sorry, Branch. But, I mean, but in all honesty, it literally, like, the guy is made up for a lot of his lack of genetics, quote unquote, with savagery in the gym and hard work. And people think that, hey, listen, it's just genetics, or it's just drugs, or it's just this, or it's just that. It's not. It's not. It's hard work, busting your ass, and doing the kind of shit that other people are not willing to do. And that's just and that's what life is about, actually.
Yeah.
When people are out on the road, when you see people out on the road, Instagram and Facebook and all these other things that you see people go out and do, and when we're going out and doing the things that other people are not willing to do. So it's about hard work.
Is it easier to go from being thin to jacked, or from fat to thin? What do you think?
Oh, I think personally, because I've always had an easier time putting on size, I always think it's the opposite.
AKA, you've always been fat.
Right. I've always, like, it was one of those things that it was always one of those things for me it was very difficult for me to get lean. So for me, I think it's always harder to get lean.
Yeah.
It's because when you're already lean, you already have one portion of your, it's like if you look at, old pictures of Dorian Yates, and you see him and you go, oh God, look, the guy was really kind of lean, and he had structure, and he had just the shape. And then when he put on all the size, what happened? What happened was he was able to kind of just transform without having to worry as much about conditioning. And then when he got bigger, he was still conditioned. And so I feel that it's a little bit easier doing it that way.
Are there any top bodybuilders that have been fat?
I've seen top bodybuilders that have gotten fat in the off season because bodybuilding.
But I mean, like, fat as a kid.
Not that I can remember.
Because you usually don't, like, from what I've seen, like,
no, because if you look at Jay, right? Jay started competing as a teenager. Branch and Jay actually used to compete against each other in the teen nationals.
Oh, wow.
And those guys compete against it. And Branch is still, I think, planning on coming back. He took a little break, but word has it on the street that he might be coming back. Jay is done for now. I think, I'm still trying to talk him into putting on some board shorts and doing men's physique against Jeremy. But all
that
in
would
all,
be cool.
that'd be pretty epic, right?
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have you go on stage too. I haven't told everybody.
Yeah,
here
why
yet,
not?
But I think it's we need to get you some board shorts and get you up on
I need to work on these glutes.
Well, no, board shorts. That's what that division's
Oh,
for.
okay.
You can wear, the longer shorts that go to your knees.
There we go.
So
I don't even have to worry about my quads.
No, you don't have to worry about your quads. And
I got decent calves.
You got decent calves, and you're just a razor and
Muscle.
some oil away.
Might as well go for it.
The show's only about 15 minutes away from here, too.
Yeah, see?
Nice.
Just walk on.
What do you think, Smoke? Yeah?
Smokey will shave him too.
This is definitely the leanest,
And oil.
leanest I've ever been. But
That's a lean. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm still working on it. I'd like to still get leaner, but for me, it's had to happen in like stages, because of the effort that it takes. I mean, I'll sometimes take 2-3 weeks, not off of a diet. I don't like go off of it, but I'll just do something different for a little while. We'll go through stages where I'm just like, I'm just gonna fucking eat more.
Mm-hmm.
I go through stages where I'm like, I'm going to use some fasting. I'll go through stages where I'll do some sprint work and do some other things to try to, get the fat burning going a little faster. And you can't have that flame burning that bright all the time. So I try to just manage it because I'm not in like a real rush. But now that you said I have to go do a bodybuilding show today, I should probably hustle.
Yeah, well, I think we have to put the plan together. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we just
Be Tom File, who's a power lifter here in the gym and former bodybuilder. He's been dying for this moment. He's like, I got to oil you up.
No, I don't know why he wants to oil you up.
I
But
know.
I just think that you've gotten in such good shape that literally there's light at the end of the tunnel in terms of like a 10-week prep, 12-week prep, and then turn around and just put you on stage.
Might as well.
Yeah.
As long as I don't have to do a double bicep, I'm all good.
No, you don't have to do a double bicep. All you do is a front and a back pose.
Yeah.
It's just front relaxed, rear
Yeah.
relaxed, and you wear board shorts. The only thing you're going to need to do is we got to put some Protan, some paint on you.
Yeah.
And then we just got to have Smokey shave you.
Stuff the front with some tube socks.
There you go.
Smoke, that's your job.
Some eggplants.
Yeah.
Some eggplant, some emojis.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, I mean, you've gotten such to a point where you should do it because you would
Why
be
not?
doing yourself and your viewers and all your followers a disservice by not doing it. Because
Son of a bitch. Man, he's putting me on the spot.
Seriously.
Yeah. Fuck it. I'll give it a shot. Why not?
all right, you guys heard it here.
Damn.
Okay,
I'm
we're
going to
doing
need a
show.
coach, though. You know anybody?
No. No. Let's put it this way. It's done. We're doing the show.
All right.
Okay. So August.
Sounds good.
Okay. We got the August Golden State coming up. It's only about 15 minutes away from here in
That's
Sacramento. So NPC IFBB Pro League show. It's great.
You know, I
because
know,
it's right
I
up the
know
road.
in some of these bodybuilding federations that they use performance-enhancing drugs. I'm totally against that. So I'll be competing in the drug-free.
That's right. Well, like I said, I think that you've made such huge changes that in all joking aside, it's been great because I've been able to see you at 300 pounds all the way down. And so it'd be great. It'd be great to
probably
get you on stage.
Probably be fun. I never had to like really try to. I guess I never had a goal like that, so I don't even know what it's like. You know what I mean? So it'd be cool to give it a shot.
No, I think it would be awesome.
You know, in bodybuilding, you know, you were mentioning some of these guys with the off-season stuff and how big they get. And people used to get really big, and then now you kind of see more people. There you go. There's a before and after of me.
There you go. Wow.
You see more people nowadays. They stay closer to their stage ready, right? What's been the big change in bodybuilding? Why are people staying leaner? They find kind of diminished returns after getting so fat in the off season type thing.
Okay, so there's a couple different reasons why. Number one, what you just mentioned, when you start to burn body fat, you're also going to burn off muscle, especially at the higher amounts of body fat.
Always.
So
Always.
yeah, always.
Always.
Especially the higher you go. So what happens is if you go, hey, listen, I'm going to put on another 10 more pounds of muscle mass, but you got to put on another 10 or 20 more pounds of body fat, you have diminishing returns.
The math's not going to work out so great.
Exactly. So now all of a sudden you're sitting there trying to prep and you'll never get shredded because you're just trying to get lean because you've gotten so far out of shape. So what you want to do is you want to get within a target of being able to get in shape in between 12 to maximum 16 weeks, depending on your genetics and depending on kind of how your body's seasoned. 12 to 16 week prep. Okay. Bodybuilding closer to 16 weeks. Men's physique guys are closer to the 12-week mark. Some guys are even a little bit less. Some guys a little bit more. But on average, it's 12 to 16-week prep. And what happens is when you were doing that, it also, and you stay in closer shape to where you're supposed to be, you're more marketable. Because if you have your sponsors that you have to go do appearances for, if you're doing stuff for Instagram, you're doing videos, you're doing content, you're doing all of these things, it becomes exponentially more powerful because you look the part. Because if you only look the part for a couple of months, and this is how it used to be, you look only the part for a couple of months out of the whole year, what is anybody going to be able to do with you? What are you going to be able to do in terms of content? And that's the thing. As a coach, I don't personally have to worry about, except for my health, and that's why I've just said, you know what, stop the madness, and I've lost 25 pounds, and I'm going to lose another 20. But my thing is, because I'm so used to taking care of everybody.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You got to be their shrink, you got to be their doctor, you got to be their lawyer, you got to be their relationship counselor. You got to be all of these things for these people to be able to keep their head on straight to try to get them to Mount Olympus. So that's the thing. And then you got to build a condo there and stay for a while I mean, that's what I try to do. When guys win 4, when girls win 4, 5, 7, whatever it is, you're trying to be up there and stay up there. And it's not like MMA or this or that where somebody can get a lucky punch and knock you off. If you can stay at the top of your game, you can be up there for a while and create a dynasty. And so what happens is when I turn around and put all of this together and I say, hey, listen, you guys should be within a certain percentage of what your stage weight is. You should be for a male or a female. I have Lauren Finley, who's one of my athletes, who is not even pro, but she is a person who looks like she's always 8 to 10 weeks out. And Lauren is one of those people that are like, hey, when is she going to compete? And right now she's traveling so much and she's doing so many different things and she's doing content and she's doing all these things. And, her following grew. I think she had literally, I think she had less than 1,000 followers when I hooked up with her and she became an Evogen athlete and whatnot. And now she's got more than me. She got like 450,000 followers. Wow. And she's won a show in New Jersey. She's looking at possibly trying to turn pro, but it's not what defines her. What defines her is how she looks and how she's able to connect with people with her training, with her nutrition, with all the things that she's endorsing and whatnot. And what happens is you're just much more marketable. And so I feel that it's super important that you stay in better shape, especially if, you can't just, kind of go off for 9 months like you used to back in the day because you used to not have social media. Now you have to do that. And then again, you have your obligations.
Have you had people mess up, they're coming down to the final, they're coming down to the wire, they got 2 weeks left and they just fucking blow it. Like for whatever reason, they just can't handle it anymore. Have you ever had anybody do anything like that and they couldn't really recover from it?
Back in the day, yes. Now, because I work with more elite athletes, and they make their living doing this, they don't tend to do that. But in the beginning, it happened all the time because people can't handle pressure.
Can you get thrown that sideways from like just a bad day or two? Or
yeah, because what'll happen is they used to fucking go off the radar, like literally off the reservation. They would be like
now
talking
you got your
themselves.
phone attached to you.
Yeah. And next thing you know, you don't talk to somebody. I used to have a client, and this guy literally would get depressed or stressed out for something, get in a fight with his ex-girlfriend or whatever. And he was trying to turn pro. And he would turn around and I would call him and check on him. And I was living in Santa Barbara, going to UC Santa Barbara at the time. And I would check on him, and he lived in the Bay Area in San Jose. And I'd say, hey, listen, I know you're stressed out. I know you got problems with your girlfriend, but I need you to stick to your diet. And he's like, well, how do you know I'm going to go off of it? And I said, somebody called me and told me they saw you eating pizza over at the round table pizza. And they ran into you.
That's the phone calls you're going to get about me, I'm sure. It's like, I don't know. You said he's doing this show in August.
He's at Rib Shack down the street. But yeah, so I would get, and then he would self-sabotage. And then he would just go off, and then I wouldn't hear from him for 3 days. And then I would drive from Santa Barbara, 4.5 hours to San Jose. And then I would literally have to walk him into the gym and watch him do cardio. Otherwise, he would sneak out the back. Shit. And I won't mention his name. I'll mention his initials. His initials are Ray Artie. So it was funny because we joke about it because Ray would do that. And this was back in 2003, 2004, and then he eventually got his shit straight, won the Nationals, and turned pro in 2005, and then eventually made it to the Olympia stage. But it was literally having to micromanage Ray to do that because he would self-sabotage, pressure, this, that. And a lot of people do that in lots of different ways. And he was the type of person who would do that, and I would literally have like one of the security guys at the gym like post up in the back because we would sit there and tell him to do cardio, and we would go train, and then we would see his car, he had a Corvette or something at the time, he had a car, and he'd jump in and we'd see him like taking off, and we're like, how the hell did you get past us? And he went through the back exit, and then he would take off, and it was like a game, and we were like, what the fuck is this? Right?
That's pretty impressive to be that dedicated to wanting to go off your diet. How do bodybuilders stay on their plan? Like, you see sometimes these guys having like tilapia and rice and broccoli, and I think from some outsiders looking in, I think people are like, just how in the fuck do they do that day in and day out?
I think it's really what motivates you. Some people will create motivation within because of that mental drive and fortitude because they don't want to embarrass themselves on stage. Okay. And that's how most people do it. Other people do it by the fact that they want to make sure that they extend their legacy because they're winning and they don't want to lose. And then other people will do it for financial reasons. So they'll find a particular goal and they will basically attach their thought process to how do I create this, this vision into reality. And whether it's winning a trophy and wanting to beat some people that it might be in their gym, or whether it was, because that's what happened to me when I used to compete. I used to have some people in the gym and we would compete and it literally bets would be going off and the managers of the gym were like, oh, I got this guy and these other guys, or I got Hany and we go out there and it was like you don't want to embarrass yourself, but you find your motivation. And that's what it could be with the guys like Phil Heath. I mean, it's not a matter of winning the Mr. Olympia. It's a matter of trying to think about, I'm trying to set my legacy here. I'm going to be tying, he just tied Arnold Schwarzenegger with 7. If he wins one more, God willing, knock on wood, coming up, he will tie Ronnie Coleman and Lee Haney. If he's able to extend that, then he will solidify himself as being the best ever. There's only in bodybuilding with 50 plus years of bodybuilding, Mr. Olympias, competitions, there's only been 13 Olympia champions, and he's number 13. So it's been that way now for 7 straight years. So what he's trying to do is he's trying to solidify his legacy. So for him, it's not just a matter of trying to win and do that, but it's also the fact that, hey, listen, how's it going to feel not to be Mr. Olympia anymore? That's also another thing that, uses motivation.
Right.
Yeah,
he just is doing it year in and year out. How are these guys doing some of this, even working through injury? Because I think he had like a hernia or something like that
Absolutely.
too. Your Jeremy tore his pec.
Yep, Jeremy tore his
and
pec.
He might still compete at the Olympia, right?
Yeah. Right now, he is looking at competing right now. I mean, his body is healing up very, very quickly. It was originally thought that we were going to have to take the year off. He's won 4 of the 5 since Mr. Olympia men's physique division was created. He's won the last 4 out of 5.
Wow.
And so now it's to the point where he tore his pec right after the Olympia last year. And again, when we talked about it earlier today before the podcast started, he was doing it on a flat bench. I'm not a huge proponent of the flat bench for my bodybuilders, especially after shows, especially at 450 pounds, a guy that weighs like 190, 200 pounds.
Yeah.
Because everything is so brittle, your body is so dried up in terms of your joints and whatnot. And he was doing it for a charity event. And so I had even called him the day before and said, hey, listen, do not, please do the deadlift, do anything else. Just don't flat bench. Okay.
Got all fired up. You got excited.
Exactly. And it's like you feel like Superman. And, he's putting up 300 on a close grip. He's doing this. He's doing that. I don't remember how heavy he was going on the incline dumbbell presses, but I mean, probably 150s, 160s. I mean, he throws around some serious weight for a guy that barely 200 pounds. And he's super strong and he trains like an open bodybuilder, the intensity. And this is coming from a guy that's wearing board shorts on stage. And he trains legs like he does open bodybuilding as well. So yes, was last week he was squatting 455 for reps.
Shit.
And with good depth and everything. So the guy is no joke. But when it came to that, I felt like he did it. He felt like he was going to be no problems, but unfortunately he tore his pec.
Yeah.
Had surgery, had it reattached. And now I don't know of anybody who's been able to reattach it and be able to compete the same year. I know Kevin Levrone did it, but I don't know if he did it at the same time when he tore his pec, if he was able to compete the same year. Yeah. I think he had to take a year off, I believe. But Jeremy is basically looking at a really quick recovery, and now he's 15 weeks out from the Olympia, and he's going to try to make a run for it. So we're going to see how his body responds in the coming weeks. But so far, it's been recovering tremendously well.
It's demoralizing when you have an injury like that because like that's what you associate yourself with. You associate yourself with lifting,
right?
And then you tear a bicep or tear a pec or whatever it might be, and then you don't have it anymore. So, like in his case, how was he able? Was he staying on his diet, or did he give himself a few weeks to just kind of?
I think he went
reevaluate.
He went through a lot of different emotional issues because him. Like a lot
makes you depressed.
Yes, like a lot of other people use it as therapy. And the training is I couldn't consider it natural Prozac for him. And so when didn't have that outlet, it was really, really difficult for him. And I've seen Jeremy at his highest highs and his lowest lows. And what I noticed was the fact that because he didn't have that outlet, it was really, really difficult for him to find an outlet. So therefore, it's kind of like, what am I doing? What's going on? Is my career over? You know, like all of a sudden now it's like, you know, at the ripe old age of 26, you know? So what, you know, I think he had just turned 27 when it happened, something around that time. But at the end of the day, it's hard because if you're using that as therapy and you don't have that therapy, what's your outlet? And it was very difficult for him. So I saw him eating shit. He was going on Instagram, eating 3 double-doubles and then eating fries and this and
that's
this.
where
And
that food came from. I was wondering,
Yeah.
I didn't know he got hurt, but I saw the food.
Yeah. And not to say that he doesn't do junk here and there because
Right.
we give him refeeds today. He's supposed to be doing a refeed today. I know because he's actually right from Roseville. So he's eating at his parents' house and they're having barbecue. And today is supposed to be, you know, his eat up day. But after that pec tear, it was really bad. It was psychologically, it was really tough on him. Very tough.
With these refeeds, do you allow people to kind of eat whatever they want, or is that kind of like one meal type of thing? Or?
I set it depending on who it is and where they're at in their program. So what happens is I set a program where if somebody's in the middle of a prep or we're going to prep, so let's say it's an off season, but it's a competitive bodybuilder, I will sit down and set parameters. I like what I call clean cheats and dirty cheats. So a clean cheat would be sushi. That's a clean cheat. Doing stuff like steak and potato with an appetizer. Those are more of what I consider the clean cheats, and a dessert. Those are clean cheats. The dirty cheats would be the pizzas of the world, stuff like that, where you're not really getting much protein. You're getting a lot of fat and a lot of carbs. So or fried foods. Those are the dirty cheats. So I limit those.
Now you're talking our language.
And I limit those. And but sometimes psychologically I throw those in because it's like I said, it's a chess match. Psychologically, I have to turn around and think several steps ahead because sometimes I do it not because I feel that their body needs it, but because their mind needs it. Because if I don't give it to them, they're going to do it themselves and not tell me, and then they're going to fuck everything up.
And maybe a little bit of positive reinforcement too for them getting in better shape. Like, oh shit, this guy's lost, or girl has lost 6 or 8 pounds of body fat. They're doing good. They're kicking ass. Go ahead and have fun.
Absolutely. It's really important to do that because if you don't think about the mind is a very, complex organ, your brain. And what needs to happen is you need to give that stimulation. And when you're putting together a diet or training program and you're trying to get somebody to change, you need to be able to give them rewards. And sometimes they're physical because it's a performance based. So you're saying, hey, listen, I like to do a cheat meal. And then what I like to do is do a weak body part after that. So when I create a program and I say, hey, we're doing a sushi cheat on Sunday and somebody needs to work on their chest, I will have them train chest the next day because they'll push the sodium and the carbs into that weak body part. That's, I've been doing that for years and years and years. And it's catching on because I see more and more coaches doing it now because I talk about it so much. And what you want to do is you want to push that into, number one, you're coming off of a day off. So you're coming off of a rest. So you're getting a workout in fresh that you need, your weakest body part in the beginning of the week. And number two, you're throwing that cheat meal into that weak body part. So if we need to work on you and we need to work on your arms, let's say, then I'm going to have you do a cheat meal the night before arm day. And that's what we're going to do.
Get all that pizza flown right into the bicep.
Yeah, you're going to get the pepperoni pump. It's the pepperoni pump.
Awesome.
So you turn around and you do that, but it's a functional cheat meal now. So we're actually going to help burn it off, and it's going to create that fascia stretching pump that we want.
This is all Smokey's heard the whole time.
He just So
I just saw
you're like that emoji with the mind blown right now. Like mind is blown.
Pepperoni pump. He just wrote it down. He just put it into a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
He's going to do it for every body part, though.
But he
every
didn't
day.
hear anything else that you said the entire time.
Yeah. His eyes were glazed over.
Yeah.
So basically, it's a matter of being able to do that.
How do you manage stress? Like you personally, because you're dealing with a lot of people and they're dumping stuff on you. Hey, my girlfriend broke up with me, or this happened or that happened. I mean, they're dumping a lot of things on you. You're a married guy, you got your own business, and you had it for a long time. How are you dealing with stress?
Several ways. I try to, the immediate way is to have, if I can get into the gym, it really helps me. So if I can do that, I'll do that. If it's something where I can't do that, or I need to get something off of my shoulders and get off of my back, I discuss it. I'm a person who likes to talk. Obviously, I'm sitting here rambling, but I'm a person who likes to talk. So I like to talk through it. So I can talk to my wife and say, hey, listen, this is what's going on right now, and it's not even really getting her opinion, just her listening to me to be able to get it off my chest. That helps a lot emotionally to have that support, that sounding wall. And then the third thing is, honestly, I like to go to places where I can completely shut down, whether it's a movie theater where I can turn my phone off for the next 2 hours and just kind of immerse myself into a movie. I love to be able to just check out for a couple hours. And then if it's, and then my hobby's racing. So I like to go racing. So we take, I live next to 2 world-class racetracks, Sonoma Raceway as well as Laguna Seca. And so me and some of my friends were very big into going out there, and it's like an adult PlayStation.
Yeah.
So we go out there. I take out my Viper ACR or one of my other cars, and we go out there and we chalk it up with and talk shit in between sessions and do that. So that's kind of my hobby. So when you see my intro to my videos on my YouTube page, you'll see cars, and people go, "What's the deal with the car stuff?" And some of those videos will come out more because I'm kind of trying to hybridize my channel make it about me, not just about training, but just also my hobbies. And one of them is that I like being able to go out there and take the cars what they're made for and put them out there on the track and go out there and blast.
Do you have to set parameters on your work? Like, do you have to say, hey, like when I get home, I'm throwing my phone in the drawer, or like I'm shutting it off at 6 p.m. Or you have any rules like that you try to follow, or you just keep trucking along?
There's definitely boundaries now more than ever, but I did that kind of through being able to reduce my client workload. And now most of my time is now working on my Evogen brand. So I do all the R&D and working on all the products. And then I have consultants that also work with me on different projects and whatnot. But at the end of the day, what happens is I have been switching from 90% training people and 10% Evogen to now 90% Evogen with 10% consulting athletes and whoever else I work with. So what happens is now naturally I don't stay on the phone till 2:00 in the morning anymore. But when it does happen, and when I do need to do that, there's the crew. When I do that, it's really important that I, try to create boundaries, because in the past there were none. So I don't care if it was 2:00 in the morning, 1:00 in the morning, whatever it was. I would focus on making sure that we would if somebody had to sit there and talk to me for an hour because they got in a huge fight with their girlfriend and it's midnight or 1:00 in the morning, I would do it. I would sit there and talk them off the ledge. I would, they had a bad day and what was going on, or they have whatever it was, I would have to deal with it. Again, you wear more hats than Michael Jackson. So there were no boundaries back then. So now I've been able to create more boundaries. So therefore I can spend more time. I've got a 5-year-old now. And very, very been very blessed. And being able to spend time with him is amazing. And so I've definitely created more balance, and my wife's helped me do that.
Yeah, he doesn't care who you're texting. He don't care who you're emailing.
Actually, he does, because he knows if it's Uncle Phil or, hey, who is that? He
knows he can mess with him, huh?
Yeah, because he knows, or if I'm talking to him, he says, I want to say hi, and he puts it on speakerphone.
Oh, that's cool.
He has to say hi to him. And then he throws a pose, because he knows he's like, I think you should do most muscular, Uncle Phil. I'm coming for your trophy. Yeah, he says that.
Awesome.
My son already talks shit at 5.
Damn.
It's crazy.
Got some questions, Andrew?
Yeah, Alan on Facebook, he has a question that I have as well. For a skinny guy like me, it's hard to eat more. Like, it's hard to get more calories, especially when it's, the good calories that we're supposed to be eating. Do you have any tips on somebody trying to up their calories that are, having a hard time?
So overall, an easy way to do that is through making sure you up your fats, because the hard thing to do is upping large amounts of carbohydrates, because they tend to bloat you. And if you're taking in calories, upping fats, so again, avocado, I like to keep to the vegetable fats more, but it's really important to throw in red meat as well, especially if you're trying to put on some size.
Coconut oil, maybe?
Yeah, coconut oil and salmon. I'm a huge believer in I love salmon, and salmon. And so putting in foods that have higher fats, using olive oil on top of your salad,
Hmm.
getting those calories in like that they're so calorically dense that they help you without bloating you. But if I'm sitting here trying to hammer 12 ounces of sweet potato or baked potato,
Yeah.
it's going to be really, really tough. The other thing I do too to try to make things is I use carb powders, and I made a carb powder to be able to drink too, because you can get 50 grams of carbohydrates and literally like 6 ounces of water.
Damn.
And so that helps as well with the carbohydrates. So you don't have to sit there and take down a potato all the time, or take down oatmeal. So doing those types of things will help go farther without bloating and doing that.
Awesome. Are you familiar with Stan Efferding's vertical diet?
I know I'm familiar with Stan, but I don't know what his diet.
Okay. That's what I've been following, and I've been having some success, like at least maintaining weight. And just to simplify it, just ground bison, white rice, eat that as much as I can, and it keeps me full. But I find myself getting hungrier faster because it's high in sodium. But I was just curious if you knew anything about that. Where does the name Procreator come from?
When I started winning a lot of my athletes, I should say, started winning a lot of pro qualifiers, what happened was I got a phone call from the owner of Muscular Development Magazine, Steve Blackman, and he had asked me, and this is back when 2001, I had Quincy Taylor win the USA overall. Then in 2002, I had Idris Wardell win the overall in the USA. And this is back when they used to only give 1 or 2 pro cards out, and they didn't have the divisions they have now. So it was really, really difficult. And everybody that turned pro, everybody knew who they were. So when the magazine started writing about me and mentioning me, and the internet had like these chat rooms, and they had some boards. People were like, "Oh, this guy's turning a lot of people pro." They came to me and said, "Hey, could you do an article?" And I said, "Okay, so what is it going to be called? I'd love to do an article." And he said, "I don't know. We're going to come up with a name." So we were trying to figure out a name, and then all of a sudden somebody popped up with one that said the Procreator, because you're creating so many pros.
Right.
And I was like, okay, Procreator. And then all of a sudden it stuck, and then I kept creating more and more pros. And then in the last 8 years, I don't want to say it's easy to turn pro, but it's much easier now than it was before. And then people started calling me the O Creator, because I was winning so many Olympias, and now it's 19 Olympias. And it's like, but the original Procreator was because of the fact that when I had the article for Muscular Development that ran for over 10 years every month in that magazine, it was the name of the article. And then they called me the Procreator by Hany Rambod. And then it was like, I'd go to trade shows. Oh, it's the Procreator. It's a Procreator. And it kind of just stuck at that point.
That's awesome.
But even though I don't try to emphasize turning people pro as often, I still do, but not as often. But now my emphasis is trying to win Olympias. But I do have clients that do want to turn pro, but I don't emphasize that as much as the people that I'm trying to keep Olympia titles going.
The O Creator might also be like a porn star name too.
That's true.
Oh, I never thought of that.
You got
Procreator, O Creator.
more than one career.
Yeah. I believe me, I had a lot of nicknames. Let's just add to it.
Hey, speaking of that, is there any differences with training women and the diet for women?
What it really comes down to with women is, especially for the competitors, is the rebounds. The rebounds are much more severe with women. With guys, you could be a pro bodybuilder, or let's say, men's physique guy, and go out and hit up some, double doubles from In-N-Out Burger and still be okay. With women, the biggest thing is making sure that after their shows, they don't blow up, because they go from, a really good 2 hour, sometimes they're doing 2 hours of cardio, 45 minutes twice a day, a cardio. I try to keep away from doing that with my athletes by keeping them a bit leaner, but a lot of them do. And I get these questions all the time at seminars I do. And they say, hey, how do I not get, metabolic damage? How do I not deal with these rebounds? Because now I've gained 40 pounds or 30 pounds. And what happens is, working with women is trying to create balance, because one dark side of competing is that if you have a tendency to have any kind of food issues, or if you have a tendency to have some kind of eating disorder, it can pull out and exacerbate the eating disorder. And so what happens is you are ending up going from one extreme eating to another. So you go from eating fish and chicken and avocado and brown rice and whatnot, to now all of a sudden going, oh my God, I'm going to be dieting like that again, so I better eat like shit because, and then every day is like almost like you're getting ready for another show. So it's creating that balance is really what's hard for women. And then they go from doing cardio every day, training every day, and eating very clean every day, to now all of a sudden they're either not doing cardio or not doing so much exercise, and then eating like shit. And it can really make a huge dramatic difference compared to a guy that's got a lot more muscle. So they burn the calories at a much higher rate. So they can eat a burger or two, it won't really affect them. But if you turn around and you're doing that all the time with a woman that's only 115 pounds or 125 pounds, it can really affect them. So it's really a matter of teaching them balance, because they have a lot less body mass, and the foods can affect them differently. And then also when you're training them, trying to stay away from exercises that can thicken their waist, because when you're doing bodybuilding and fitness shows, what's happening is you're looking for that maximum X, the V taper and that X frame. So if you're doing tons of deads, you're doing tons of squats and whatnot, it'll thicken your torso. So you got to be careful not to go too heavy with those when you're doing bodybuilding, because if you start doing that too much, it can make you stockier and thicker through the torso and the midsection. So you have to try to make sure you minimize that. So you want to be able to hit the glutes, hit the quads, but you don't want to thicken up your obliques too much, because it can take away from your X frame.
That makes sense. It might be part of the reason why the CrossFit girls, they're shredded, they're jacked, they got abs, right? But they have very like muscular and thick midsections.
Yeah.
Rather than looking like a bodybuilder.
Right. And that's because of all the functional training they're doing.
Right.
And you can just see, like you said, they're shredded. They look amazing.
Yeah.
But are they the best for bodybuilding or any of the type of bodybuilding type of competitions? Not necessarily.
What's the safest way for a female to just drop body fat?
Honestly, it's similar to the guys. It's just making sure that the safest thing to do is get fasted cardio. I'm a huge believer in fasted cardio.
Okay.
Fasted cardio, and then just make sure that you're a calorie deficit. And if you have a lot of body fat to lose, then the same thing that I do with my men. I make sure to bump up their fats, bump up their protein, cut back their carbs, and then make sure to start cycling in, a really good exercise program and cardio program along with that to keep their cravings down.
Should every workout be fasted, or like just a couple times a week?
Cardio, I like to do fasted
Okay.
up to 5 days a week on cardio. And then depending on what their work schedule is, I'll create a program that's either after work, if they have a work schedule, or if they're an athlete or they're a trainer where they can have a flexible program, then I like to get them to train after their second meal.
Awesome.
How fasted are we talking about? Like, what if somebody doesn't have the opportunity to do it right in the morning? Is 2-3 hours good enough, or is it got to be like 7, 8? Like, what are you trying to shoot for?
So there's two ways of doing fasted cardio in my programs. One is just waking up doing fasted. The second is I'll throw in a intermittent fasting program, and the intermittent fasting will usually go till about noon. And then they'll turn around and eat from noon to 6 or noon to 8, and then they'll shut it back down again.
Right.
So it just really depends on which program that I'm putting them on. But I believe in both intermittent fasting and keto and carb cycling and whatnot. So I like to use, again, a lot of different tools in the ammo belt.
When you're talking about cardio, what do you prefer?
I prefer what most people can just fit in their house. I mean, when we do contests, I like the step mill, because the step mill it burns a lot of calories.
Fucking kills you.
Yeah, it kills you. That's why I like it. And I've loved the step mill from day one. I remember using it for Ronnie Coleman's girlfriend that I was training, and she was at the time she was competing in pro fitness, and I would have her do step mill. And so this is like 2002, 2003. And so he ended up buying a step mill for his home gym. And he ended up starting to use it because she was on it. And he ended up coming in at the highest weight ever by utilizing that in terms of like conditioning his glutes that following year 2003, where he was a monster.
Yeah.
And so what happened was that she would end up wanting to fight over it with him, and then they ended up he bought another one so they can do it together. So they had two of them. So my thing is, that's my favorite. If you have the higher ceilings and you can handle putting a step mill in, That's my number one. If you don't, then obviously a treadmill would be second, because then you can change the elevation to it. And then if you have issues with joints or this or that, then like a recumbent bike or whatnot.
Are you getting technical with it and checking like the heart rate, or you don't really care? Just kind of work hard and go for like an hour.
Depends. Really, in the beginning, it's just a matter of just getting in there and getting a sweat going. Then what happens is we start getting a little bit more technical with it. The more advanced the athlete, the more technical we get. So if it's somebody who's just trying to lose weight, it's just a matter of, hey, hit 3 miles an hour, check your heart rate. That's it. But then when we're getting a little bit more technical, when we're getting ready for shows, then we're hitting HIIT. We're doing HIIT. We're doing different types of steady state. We're mixing it up. And then we're going up to 80% of maximum. We're doing Carbonin. We're doing a bunch of different formulas that once I get a little bit more technical on it. And I don't always tell the athlete, hey, listen, I'm doing this, this, and this. I'll just tell them, hey, listen, I already know what their age is. I already know what their thing is. And I'll say, hey, I want you to get to 150 to 160 beats per minute, then bring it back down. We'll do like a 1 minute up, 2 minutes down. So we're going high for 1 minute, and then we'll bring it back down for 2 minutes. And then so it'll be 150, 160 beats per minute, and then back down to 100 to 120. And then obviously the more better in shape they are, the faster their body will recover and bring their heart rate back down.
And some of that's just to throw your body a curveball, but also you're trying to preserve muscle mass as you come down the stretch, right?
Correct. And then the opposite will be true too. So when we go back into a more steady state, then what we're trying to do is we're not trying to beat up the body, so we're not going into that HIIT cardio. So then what we'll do is we'll do steady state and just do like power walking, because what we're trying to do is just burn some excess calories, keep the metabolism going without having to really make sure that your body's just trying to maintain every ounce of muscle mass, because you're getting so close, your body is so close, you don't need to worry about trying to get deep into the intermuscular fat.
Who's your favorite bodybuilder of all time?
Oh, Jesus. I mean, it's different because I work with Phil, so I'm a little bit biased about him. So I try to kind of like keep him off the thing because he's so complete. Ronnie was a freak of nature, and he was just so crazy to watch. And
what about exciting. Even from like the time you were a kid almost?
Dorian was very big when I was competing, and I was in the 90s and whatnot. It was Dorian. Dorian was like the guy that was throwing in a lot of the Arthur Jones principles with the high intensity training. So Mike Menser, I would read all his stuff, and I liked everybody for what they brought. So I would take, just kind of like my program, I would take bits and pieces of everybody, but I didn't have this one person to be like, oh my God. But when I was competing, Dorian was the man. Dorian was kind of like, they call him the shadow, because nobody would see him. Nobody would, hear from him. There was no internet back then. And it was kind of like, he'd come in, he'd win. And I would literally, I would call up Gold's Venice and be like, where do you guys have the results for the Olympia yet? And they're like, no, we'll have them in a couple more hours, and they're like, call back in 2 hours. And I would literally have to that's how I would get the results for the Olympia.
That's great.
And, but yeah, so Dorian was somebody I really,
he was also covered head to toe all the time. Like, he didn't show off. You didn't really see a lot of stuff of him like flexing or posing or, except for, some of those famous pictures from Flex magazine.
Yeah.
But you didn't see or hear anything from him. He'd come in and just kill everybody.
Absolutely. Kevin Horton, who took those pictures, is a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And I've worked a lot with him in the past. And it's one of those things where that mentality was something that I personally believed in. Like keeping covered up, doing, just not showing off, not doing any of those things. That's completely the opposite of what everybody does today. Right. It was kind of like the old school mentality of going in the cave and not coming back until you're ready to kill,
Yeah, he had a cool mystique about him, just the way that he trained, the training in that like dungeon. And those guys were always wearing those big baggy, baggy clothes and walking around with a gallon jug. Kind of had the whole thing going on. I remember watching the Blood and Guts videos, and I had his book. Huge
VHS, right?
Fan. Yeah, absolutely.
It's all VHS.
I've been a huge fan of his for a really long time. Who do you think has had the best physique in the history of bodybuilding?
Again, I think Phil's has the most complete, because he's so deadly when it comes to the three-dimensionality. There's not many.
It's really weird when he does like most muscular or something. He flexes and you're like, he's got like 20 or 30 other muscles that nobody else has. For some reason.
Right.
It's weird. They flex and you're like, oh shit, everybody looks jacked. And then Phil like flexes harder and there's like extra stuff that comes out and you're like, I don't understand what just happened, but he clearly won.
He has that three-dimensionality that everything looks like it's photoshopped. And I think that's the thing that you end up,
Jesus.
I think that's a little bit Photoshop, but it's one of those things where that's an exaggerated photo of what he looks like. But he has got super 3D muscle, and when you look at him, it just, like I said, it looks like it's Photoshopped. But I think that there's every bodybuilder out there, like when I worked with Jay in 2009, he had such fucking detail. And he got so dry and so full. And I used to be a huge critic of Jay because I would always say, man, you look like two different bodybuilders from the front and back. Okay. And then, so from the front, he would always look crazy, quads, striated, everything else. And then from behind, he'd pull his elbows back and everything. And you're like, I kind of see a little Christmas tree. His glutes aren't super shredded. Yeah, there's a good picture of Phil right there. And, and that's actually not Photoshopped. And so, it's really was really cool to see him when I was working with him in 2009 to get him shredded, and he was one of his lightest, but he looked so massive because he was so dry, and you're able to get that micro detail. And in 2009, I thought that was one of the best looks ever presented on the stage. So again, if Dorian's best look versus Jay's best look versus Phil's best look versus Ronnie's best look, that would be kind of pretty epic, right? If they all came in their best and then we're all on stage at the same lighting, it would be a whole different level. But I think that they all presented a whole, super package. I think Dorian's second year, I believe it was 1993, where he looked crazy. His first year he was a little too depleted, but he still won. And the second year he looked really 3D.
He put like 20 or 30 pounds on.
Yeah, and if you asked him
"How
during
did
his
he do that?"
interviews, how did you do that? Do you remember what he said?
No.
He said, half of it was muscle that I didn't lose to try to get too ripped. And then the other half of it I put on in the year that I was training. So it was like 20 pounds of muscle or whatever.
Right.
And it was because he had over dieted because he was trying to, he overthought it and says, I don't need to lose this much muscle.
Everybody just thought he found a magic drug.
No, it was that. But now he's all into yoga, and if you watch, some of the different things that he's done, he talks about.
I'd love to interview him. I think Andrew's dying over there, coughing up a storm. So what's next for you? What do you got going on next?
So what's going on next is I'm going to be getting ready to go on some trips. I'm going to be going to go
travel a lot, huh?
Yeah, travel a lot. I was in Philippines. I was in Germany for FIBO. I was in the Philippines doing a lot of different trade shows with Evogen. And then I go down and from time to time see Bradley down south. So him and I got to get back together and do some stuff. I can't wait to do some stuff with him, which is cool because he's so used to doing a lot of different functional stuff now. And even though he's competed in the past. But get ready to go see Phil, being that we're 15 weeks out. He's just getting back from New York, doing his guest posing over the weekend. So I'm scheduling that trip to go see him. And then getting Jeremy ready. And then now also I've got some looming trips out in the Middle East I got to get out to. I want to get out to Dubai. And then I'm going to go see one of my Iranian athletes, Hady Chopin, who's a 212 guy, who's making some noise.
What's your ethnicity?
I'm Iranian too. So my mom and my father are both Iranian. I came over. I was born in Kuwait, so it's kind of weird. I have an Arabic name, but I was both my parents are from Iran, and then when I was 2 years old, they moved to the United States, and we've been in the Bay Area since.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, and they're still around, and then later my brothers and sisters had moved, and it's one of those things where there's a big Iranian community that is really into bodybuilding. Huge. Like if you go and see a lot of my comments and stuff, that you see so many people because bodybuilding is like soccer to them, to a lot of countries. I mean, it's because it's not a really open country because of all the politics, but they are so big into weightlifting, powerlifting, and bodybuilding. I don't know if you see
something also too in other countries about individualism that gets people fired up, like, because they don't have it a lot of times in other countries. It's like, no, you're going to look the same and be the same as this person. You're going to have the same job, make the same amount of money, and have the same car. everything's gonna be the same. So I think that side of it too, that side of it, if it's like it's your freedom to like look whatever way you want, I think is intriguing to a lot of other countries too.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way. I thought it was just because you couldn't drink and you couldn't go out with girls, and it was like,
Yeah.
openly, and it was that. But yeah,
Yeah, because I've had like going to some of these trade shows, especially getting a chance to go overseas and in talking to some people, they were kind of mentioning that, and I never thought about it either. I was like, oh my God, I never even. There's like that's what we love about America is that you're almost encouraged to be different,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool.
yeah, and obviously the land of opportunity. There's so many things that we can do here, and
Right.
it's really we're blessed. We're blessed to be able to do what we want because of the people out there that are preserving our freedom. And with Memorial Day just last week and everything else, it's good to be able to be somewhere where when you travel.
How nice is it to come back home?
Yeah.
It's fun to travel, and then you're like, oh shit, I'm going back to the United States. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, and people don't understand it until they go out there and see
Right.
what the rest of the world's like.
Where can people find you?
HanyRambod.com is my training and services. EvogenNutrition.com is my supplement company site. And then obviously just Hany Rambod for Facebook and for Instagram.
What supplement you're most proud of that you have?
God, right
Probably
now,
like an old one that you made a long time ago.
Yeah,
you love.
everybody talks about my, like alt cell chem, my intro workout that's still been around for 9 years, and I'm working on it and reformulating now because it's like I said, just been working on 9 years. But believe it or not, like my new greens formula, because I'm not good at taking in veggies.
Nobody is.
Yeah, and it's like such a pain in the ass. And then you go, okay, well, I eat a lot of salad, and now all of a sudden they say don't eat salad because of the lettuce scare. And
People are dying.
yeah, people are literally dying from eating vegetables, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
So now with the ability to get it in fruits and veggies on a scooper, all natural, organic,
Yeah.
I created a formula
How
that's also
convenient is that?
performance based. So, and it has natural anti-inflammatory properties like pomegranate extract, and it's got probiotics in it so that you can help with your immune system.
It's a lot different than just taking a vitamin because, like, when you take in something like a vitamin C, it has absorbic acid, and supposedly we can't even handle that. So
Right.
when you're taking it through fruits and vegetables like this, you can digest it a lot better.
Yeah, it's amazing. I got to give you some actually.
Yeah, I'll give it a try.
But it's what the nice thing about it is the 2 grams of spirulina in there is not only organic, but it also helps with recovery. So I've noticed a huge difference in the recovery component of it. And I've given it to a lot of athletes. I've given it to different people that literally are either taking no greens or have maybe tried greens in the past, but they didn't taste very good. And being all naturally sweetened and everything else, it makes it, it doesn't feel like I have to force it down. And so that kind of makes it easier.
I think Smokey would just sprinkle it over his pizza.
You know what? That's not a bad idea.
I don't know.
Functional pizza. But yeah, so I think that's probably my favorite right now because it's kept me from getting sick because I normally get sick by this time 3 or 4 times a year.
all the travel and everything.
From all the traveling.
And
yeah.
sleep deprivation.
Spirulina is pretty rough. Does it taste pretty good?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it tastes great.
Awesome.
So yeah, I've actually got some in the car. I'll give you some.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Which supplement has 5-HTP? Because that sounds really interesting.
Actually, the 5-HTPs and the fat burner.
Fat. Okay.
Yeah.
What's
There
it
you go.
called?
Lipocide.
Awesome.
LIPOCIDE, which basically translates to fat death.
Yeah.
So fat death. Lipo is fat, side death. So
I think that's pretty powerful.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
Death of fat.
the death of fat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So didn't you say something about death of carbs or something once?
Yeah, war on carbs.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah,
There you go.
the war on insulin resistance. All right, that's all the time we got. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later.
Thanks.